The Hunt for Tomorrow by Jansen Davies. Chapter 1. Shattered Space. The stars burned cold above the battlefield. Across the galactic rim, the alien fleet surged like a tide of metallic fire. Thousands of warships, each a jagged silhouette against the dying light of a dozen shattered worlds. They moved with terrifying precision, leaving behind scorched planets and silenced colonies. No warning, no demands, just annihilation. But humanity had not gone quietly. From the edge of the Orion corridor, Admiral Craig's armada emerged, sleek, angular ships bristling with weapons and vengeance. The two fleets collided in the vacuum like gods at war. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness, hulls ruptured, debris spiraled into the void. It was the greatest galactic battle the universe had ever seen. Craig stood on the bridge of the Drake, his eyes locked on the alien flagship, a monstrous vessel, larger than any human city, its surface pulsing with eerie blue light. It was the heart of the invasion, the mind behind the slaughter. "They're breaking formation," his tactical officer said. "Flagship is retreating." Craig's jaw tightened. "Not today." He turned to his comms officer. "Order all ships to concentrate fire on the flagship. I want it erased." Across the fleet, human warships pivoted in unison. 100 cannons roared. The alien flagship's deflectors flared, then buckled under the relentless assault. Explosions rippled across its hull like dominoes. Sections of the ship tore free, spinning into space. Then, just before the vessel was consumed entirely, a hatch opened. A single shuttle burst from the wreckage, riding the shockwave like a leaf in a storm. It was small, fast, and heading for the nearest moon. "Shuttle detected," the sensor chief called out. "Should we destroy it?" Craig hesitated. Something about the escape felt deliberate. "No," he said. "Send a fighter to intercept. I want its occupants taken alive." He turned toward the viewport, watching the shuttle vanish into the lunar shadow. "Let's find out why they came." Chapter 2. First Contact. The moon was a graveyard of forgotten light. Lieutenant Rory Powell's fighter sliced through the thin atmosphere, its engines whispering against the silence. Craters stretched like scars across the surface, and the shuttle, small, battered, and trailing smoke, had settled near a jagged ridge of obsidian rock. Rory's HUD blinked red warnings. Radiation spikes, trace alien tech, no signs of life. He landed 100 meters out, boots crunching against the dust as he approached the shuttle with weapon drawn. His breath misted inside his helmet, each step a countdown to confrontation. The hatch hissed open. Rory braced, expecting claws, fangs, something monstrous. Instead, a young woman stood shaking in fear, clutching a bundled infant to her chest. Her face was pale, streaked with soot and tears. Her eyes, wide, haunted, locked onto his. "Please," she whispered, "don't shoot." Rory lowered his weapon slowly. "Identify yourself." "Jessica Brand," she said, "from the colony on Eos Prime. They took us." She looked down at the child. "This is Jacob, my son." Rory scanned them. Human. Malnourished. No implants. No visible injuries. "What happened?" he asked. Jessica's voice trembled. "They destroyed everything, burned the cities, killed everyone. I don't know why they spared us. They barely looked at me. But Jacob, they studied him, tested him, like he was the reason they came." Rory's grip tightened on his rifle. "What kind of tests?" "I don't know. Machines, lights. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand. Then they stopped. I think they were going to kill us. But when the battle started, the guards left. I ran." She looked past him toward the stars. "Are we safe now?" Rory nodded, though he wasn't sure. "You're under military protection. I'll take you to the flagship. You'll be debriefed, then relocated." Jessica clutched Jacob tighter. Thank you. Rory tapped his calm. Admiral, I've made contact. Civilian survivors. One adult, one child. There was a pause, then Craig's voice, cold and clipped. Bring them in. And Powell, don't let them out of your sight. Rory glanced at the child. Jacob stared back, eyes impossibly calm. Something in that gaze unsettled him. He didn't know it yet, but the war had never been about territory or conquest. It had always been about the boy. Chapter 3. Debriefing. The Drake loomed in orbit like a steel leviathan, its hull scarred from battle, its decks humming with the quiet urgency of survival. Rory guided the shuttle into the docking bay, eyes flicking between Jessica, silent and pale, and the child nestled in her arms. Jacob hadn't cried once. Inside the debriefing chamber, sterile lights cast long shadows. Jessica sat across from a panel of officers, her voice steady but frayed as she recounted the horror on Eos Prime, the firestorms, the slaughter, the abduction. She spoke of the tests, the alien fixation on her son, the way they treated her like a footnote. Rory stood behind the glass, watching. He'd seen trauma before, but this was different. Jessica wasn't just a survivor. She was a witness to something the military hadn't anticipated. When the session ended, Rory escorted her to temporary quarters. She looked up at him, eyes searching. "Will they let us go?" she asked. Rory hesitated. "I'll make sure you're safe." He left her there, then made his way to the command deck. Admiral Craig was waiting, arms folded, gaze locked on a tactical display. He didn't look up. "You spoke with the woman?" he asked. Rory nodded. "She's credible. Her story checks out. I recommend relocation to a secure colony." Craig turned slowly. "That's not going to happen." Rory frowned. "Why not?" Craig tapped the console. A hologram flickered to life. Alien prisoners, restrained and interrogated, their voices translated in jagged bursts. "They came for the child," Craig said. "Not the colony, not the resources. Just him." Rory Powell stepped forward, still shaken from the debrief. "You're telling me they launched a full-scale invasion for a toddler?" Craig didn't flinch. "Not for who he is, for whom he'll become." He gestured toward the projection. Jacob Brand. Age, 18 months. Status, unknown anomaly. Our analysts ran deep time simulations, genetic modeling, cognitive potential. That child is a singularity, a mind that will reshape physics itself. Rory stared at the image. Jacob's eyes were wide, unblinking. There was something ancient in his gaze, something that didn't belong to a child. Craig continued. "He'll invent a device that renders starships obsolete, a teleporter, instant travel across the galaxy, no fuel, no delay, no borders." Rory's voice was low. "And the aliens know this. They saw it coming, their prophets, their quantum seers, whatever they use. They saw humanity spreading like wildfire, colonizing worlds they thought unreachable, becoming unstoppable." Rory stepped back, the weight of it pressing down. "So they came to kill him before he could grow up." Craig nodded. "They failed. But they'll try again." Silence stretched between them. Then Craig turned, eyes sharp. "That's why we're putting him into protective custody. And why you'll be his guardian." Rory blinked. "Me? You made first contact. The mother trusts you, and your record speaks for itself. Tactical brilliance, survival instincts, empathy. You're the right mix." Rory hesitated. "Where would we go?" Craig tapped a console. A new projection appeared, an old surveillance outpost on a barren planet. No traffic, no signals, decommissioned decades ago. "Off the grid," Craig said. "No one will find you." Rory nodded slowly, the decision settling in his bones. He wasn't just guarding a child, he was guarding the future of the species. Chapter 4. Into the Ice. The planet had no name. It was a forgotten rock on the edge of mapped space, once used as a surveillance post during the cold expansion. Now it was just ice and wind, its skies a permanent shade of ash. No traffic, no signals, no reason for anyone to come looking. Perfect. Rory guided the transport through the thick cloud layer, the outpost emerging like a rusted scar on the surface. The facility was half buried in snow, its landing pad cracked and overgrown with frost vine. Jessica sat behind him, clutching Jacob, her eyes scanning the desolate horizon. "This is home?" she asked softly. "For now," Rory replied. They disembarked into silence. The air was breathable but thin, the wind sharp and dry. The outpost's main hatch groaned open, revealing corridors lined with dust and decay. Lights flickered. Consoles blinked erratically. It smelled of old metal and forgotten purpose. Inside, Rory moved with practiced efficiency, clearing rooms, checking systems, hauling crates from the transport. Jessica followed, cleaning what she could, setting up a makeshift nursery in the least damaged chamber. Jacob watched everything with quiet curiosity, his gaze too focused for a child his age. By nightfall, the outpost was livable. Rory stood outside, staring at the stars. No signals, no movement, just the hum of the wind and the weight of responsibility pressing into his chest. He activated the transport's autopilot and watched it lift off, vanishing into the sky. No trace, no trail, no way back. Inside, Jessica sat by a flickering heater, Jacob asleep in her arms. She looked up as Rory entered. "Why here?" she asked. Rory hesitated. "Because no one remembers it exists." She nodded slowly, eyes distant. "I still don't understand why they want him." Rory sat across from her. "I can't tell you everything, but I can tell you this. He's important. More than you know." Jessica looked down at her son. "He's just a baby." Rory's voice was quiet. "Not for long." Outside, the wind howled across the barren plains, and somewhere far beyond the stars, the hunt continued. Chapter 5. Ghosts of the Past. The outpost settled into silence. Days passed in a rhythm of survival, repairs, rationing, patrols. The wind howled across the frozen plains, but inside the steel walls, a fragile calm took root. Rory checked the perimeter each morning, scanning for signals, anomalies, anything that might hint at pursuit. Jessica kept to the living quarters, tending to Jacob, who had begun to crawl with eerie precision, his eyes always watching. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Rory found Jessica sitting alone in the mess hall, a cup of rehydrated tea cradled in her hands. The lights flickered above them, casting long shadows across the table. "You ever get used to the quiet?" she asked. Rory sat across from her. "You learn to respect it." She nodded, then looked down. "My husband died in a mine collapse, Eos Prime, 3 weeks before Jacob was born." Rory didn't speak. He let the silence stretch. "He was a good man," she said. "Not brilliant, not brave, just kind. He would have loved Jacob." Rory leaned back, the memory surfacing unbidden. "I left someone behind on Earth. Her name was Marin. She married a robot salesman, had twins. I still get the occasional message, birthday photos, updates." Jessica smiled faintly. "Do you regret it?" Rory shrugged. "I regret not saying goodbye." They sat in silence, the hum of the outpost surrounding them like a heartbeat. Jacob stirred in the next room, letting out a soft cry. Jessica stood, but Rory waved her off. "I've got him." He walked into the nursery, found the boy sitting upright in his crib, staring at the ceiling. Rory picked him up. cradled him gently. "You're smart," he whispered. "Too smart for your age." Jacob blinked, then reached out and touched Rory's cheek. It was a simple gesture, but something passed between them, an understanding, wordless and ancient. Rory carried him back to Jessica, who watched with a mix of gratitude and fear. "He's not normal," she said softly. Rory nodded. "Number, but maybe that's what we need." Outside, the moons drifted higher, casting silver light across the ice, and somewhere in the void the hunters were still searching. Chapter 6. The Scout. The morning began like the others, cold, quiet, and gray. Rory stepped outside the outpost, his boots crunching against frost-laced ground. The wind whispered across the plains, carrying the scent of iron and dust. He scanned the horizon, his rifle slung across his back, sensors pinging low-level anomalies. Nothing unusual. Then the alarm blared. Inside, consoles lit up red. Jessica rushed to the control room, clutching Jacob, her face pale. "What is it?" she asked. Rory's voice was clipped. "Incoming vessel. Small. Fast. Not human." He activated the outpost's defense grid. Turrets rose from the ground like skeletal sentinels. A missile silo hissed open, targeting systems locking onto the intruder. On the screen, the alien scout ship pierced the atmosphere, its hull shimmering with cloaking residue. It banked hard toward the outpost, scanning, searching. "They're looking for us," Rory muttered. Jessica held Jacob tighter. "Can they see us?" "Not yet." The ship drew closer, hovering above the facility. Rory watched the telemetry spike, energy readings, life-form scans, signal sweeps. Then the missile launched. A streak of fire tore through the sky, slamming into the scout ship's underbelly. The explosion lit up the horizon, scattering debris across the plains. The ship spiraled, then vanished in a plume of smoke. Jessica stared at the screen. "Is it over?" Rory shook his head. "That was just a scout. They'll send more." He turned to the console, fingers flying across the interface. A beacon activated, encrypted, low frequency, bouncing off deep space relays. "Calling for backup," he said. "But it'll take time." Jessica's voice trembled. "What do we do until then?" Rory looked out the viewport, where the wreckage still burned. "We disappear." Chapter 7. The Frozen Refuge. The cave was carved by time and ice. High in the jagged spine of the mountain range, Rory led Jessica and Jacob through a narrow pass, their breath fogging in the frigid air. The wind raged like a living thing, clawing at their coats, whispering warnings in a language older than stars. Behind them, the outpost was a distant speck, barely visible through the snow-laced clouds. They had hiked for hours, packs heavy with rations, weapons, and the weight of knowing they were being hunted. Jessica stumbled, catching herself against the rock. Rory turned, helped her up, his gloved hands steady. "We're close," he said. The cave mouth appeared like a wound in the cliffside, dark, deep, and dry. Inside, the air was still. The walls shimmered faintly with mineral frost. Rory activated a portable heater, its glow casting flickering shadows across the stone. They set up camp in silence. Jessica wrapped Jacob in thermal blankets, her hands trembling. Rory rigged motion sensors at the cave's entrance, then climbed to a ledge overlooking the valley. From there he saw it. The outpost erupted in fire. Alien ships descended like vultures, missiles streaking toward the facility. The ground shook with distant thunder. Flames licked the sky. The place they had called home for weeks was reduced to ash in seconds. Jessica joined him, eyes wide with horror. "They found us," she whispered. Rory nodded. "They'll search the wreckage. Then they'll spread out." She looked at him, fear rising. "What do we do?" Rory's voice was low, resolute. We wait, and if they come too close, I hunt them first. Jessica reached for his hand. Don't go. He turned to her, saw the desperation in her eyes, the silent plea not to be left alone again. I have to, he said. It's the only way. She leaned in, kissed him, soft, sudden, and full of everything they hadn't said. Then she stepped back, holding Jacob close. Rory descended into the valley, rifle in hand, shadows swallowing him whole. The hunt had begun again. But this time the predator was human. Chapter 8. Predator. The mountain was silent, but Rory could feel them. Alien troopers had scattered across the valley, their movements precise, methodical. They hunted like machines, sweeping the terrain in concentric circles, scanning for heat signatures, sound, scent. Their armor shimmered with adaptive camouflage, blending into rock and snow. But Rory had hunted before, on Earth, in jungles and deserts. He knew how to vanish, and he knew how to kill. He crouched behind a ridge, watching two troopers move through the ice field below. Their weapons pulsed with blue energy, their heads swiveling in perfect sync. Rory waited. The wind shifted. One of them paused, sensing something. Too late. Rory lunged from the shadows, driving his blade into the trooper's neck joint. The alien spasmed, gurgled, collapsed. The second turned, raising its weapon, but Rory was already moving. He fired once, the shot punching through the creature's visor. It dropped, twitching, staining the snow black. He dragged the bodies into a crevice, covered the blood with frost. No traces, no signals. Then he moved again. Hours passed. One by one he hunted them. Ambushes in ravines, traps set with thermal decoys, silent kills beneath the frozen canopy. He used the terrain like a weapon, forcing them into choke points, isolating them. His rifle was low on charge. His knife was slick with alien blood. By dusk, only one remained. Rory tracked it to a narrow gorge where the trooper had set up a relay beacon. It was calling for reinforcements. Rory didn't hesitate. He dropped from the ledge like a shadow, landing behind the trooper. It spun, claws raised, but Rory tackled it into the snow. They rolled, grappling, striking. The alien was strong, inhumanly fast. It slammed Rory against the rock, fracturing his visor. He gasped, blood filling his mouth. Then he saw the beacon. Still active. Rory twisted, grabbed the alien's weapon, and fired point-blank into its chest. The trooper convulsed, then went still. Rory crawled to the beacon, ripped out its core, and crushed it beneath his boot. Silence returned. He stood there, panting, bleeding, surrounded by the bodies of his prey. The hunt was over. For now. Chapter 9. The Sky Falls. Rory's breath steamed in the cold as he climbed the final ridge, blood crusted on his jacket, his rifle low on charge. The valley below was littered with the remains of the alien troopers, scattered bodies half buried in snow, weapons frozen in their final grip. But the sky was changing. He saw it before the sensors did. 3 new ships breaching the atmosphere, their hulls gleaming like obsidian knives, larger than scouts, heavier, armed. They weren't searching anymore. They were here to finish the job. Rory sprinted toward the cave, lungs burning, boots slipping on ice. Jessica met him at the entrance, Jacob bundled in her arms, eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," Rory said. "Big ones." Jessica's voice cracked. "We have to run." "No time. We hold here." He activated the last of the outpost's beacon signal. A burst of encrypted data shot into deep space. A call for help. A final flare. Then he turned to the cave's narrow entrance, setting mines, tripwires, fallback positions. Jessica helped, her hands trembling but steady. She had stopped asking questions. She understood now. This wasn't just survival. It was war. The alien ships descended like thunder, their engines shaking the mountain. Missiles streaked toward the valley, obliterating the wreckage of their fallen scouts. Fire bloomed across the snow. Then the shuttles landed. Troopers poured out. Dozens this time, moving in formation, scanning, sweeping. Rory watched from the shadows, calculating angles, timing their advance. He fired first. A mine detonated, sending 2 troopers flying. He picked off another from the ridge, then retreated deeper into the cave. The aliens responded with plasma fire, scorching the rock, melting ice. The cave shook. Jessica shielded Jacob, whispering to him, singing softly to drown out the screams. Rory fought like a ghost, appearing, striking, vanishing. He used the terrain, the shadows, the chaos, but they kept coming. More than he could handle, more than he could kill. Then the sky split open. Human warships roared in from orbit, cannons blazing. Missiles tore through the alien ranks, ships exploded mid-air, troopers scattered. The mountain lit up with fire and fury. Rory collapsed behind cover, watching the tide turn. A voice crackled through his communication. "Powell, this is Admiral Craig. We've got you. Prepare for extraction." Rory turned to Jessica, who was crying now, silent tears of relief. "It's over," he said. She nodded, clutching Jacob close. But Rory knew better. This was just the beginning. Chapter 10. Earthbound. The transport broke through the cloud layer, descending toward Earth like a ghost returning home. Rory sat in the cockpit, eyes fixed on the sprawling city below. Glass towers, neon veins, endless movement. Civilization. Noise. Distraction. It was everything the mountain hadn't been. And that was the point. Jessica sat behind him, Jacob asleep in her arms. She hadn't spoken much since the rescue. Her eyes held the weight of too many close calls, too many unanswered questions. Rory understood. Silence was easier than truth. Admiral Craig's voice echoed in his mind. "You'll hide in plain sight." Just another couple. Just another child. The transport landed in a quiet suburb on the outskirts of the city. A modest home had been prepared. White walls, synthetic lawn, a mailbox with their new names etched in chrome. Rory and Jessica Powell, and their son, Jake. Not Jacob, not the anomaly, just Jake. Inside, the house was sterile but livable. Furniture arranged with military precision. A fridge stocked with rations. A nursery already set up. Surveillance systems hidden in the walls. Jessica wandered through the rooms, touching surfaces like she was trying to wake them up. "This feels wrong," she said. Rory joined her in the kitchen. "It's safe." She turned to him. "Is it?" He didn't answer. That night, they sat on the back porch, watching artificial stars flicker in the sky. Jacob, now Jake, slept inside, his breathing steady, his dreams unknowable. Jessica broke the silence. "Do you think they'll come here?" Rory's voice was low. "They'll never stop looking." She nodded. "Then we don't stop watching." He looked at her, saw the resolve in her eyes. Not fear, not despair. Just quiet defiance. They weren't survivors anymore. They were guardians. And parenthood was just the next battlefield. Chapter 11. The Head Start. The city hummed with life. Outside their modest home, hover cars drifted past like silent fish, and children played in synthetic parks beneath the glow of orbital mirrors. It was peaceful, deceptively so. But inside, Rory and Jessica were already thinking ahead. Jake sat on the living room floor, stacking blocks with eerie precision. He wasn't just building towers, he was testing balance, weight, structure. At 18 months, he was already solving puzzles meant for children twice his age. Jessica watched him, brow furrowed. "He's going to need more than a safe house." Rory nodded. "He needs a head start, somewhere that can challenge him without exposing him." They sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through encrypted databases, off-grid academies, private institutions with quantum shielding, places where brilliance could bloom in secrecy. Jessica paused on one listing: the Longstreet Institute, remote campus, a eye-enhanced curriculum, no public records. "It's expensive," she said. Rory smirked. "We'll make it work." They submitted a discreet application under false credentials. No mention of teleportation, no hint of prophecy, just a bright child with curious eyes and a quiet intensity. Later that night, Rory tucked Jake into bed. The boy looked up at him, eyes wide and ancient. "You're going to change everything," Rory whispered. Jessica stood in the doorway, arms crossed, a soft smile on her lips. "We'll make sure he's ready." Outside, the stars shimmered. The war was over, the hunt had ended, but the future was just beginning. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, please hit the bell icon for notifications. Thank you.